Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. In today's webinar, we'll be focusing on exploring the interplay between CloudOps and GenAI, how each one is going to influence the other and how both are going to evolve. From a CloudOps perspective, we'll try and cover five broad aspects: FinOps, governance, monitoring and observability, security and compliance, and operations management. Before we begin, a few housekeeping rules. All of you will be on mute the duration of the webinar. We will have a 10 to 15 minutes Q&A session towards the end. So in the meanwhile, you can, during the course of the webinar, you can put up your questions using the Q&A panel. And if you want to direct your questions to any of the particular panelists, please mention their names. A recording of this session will be available on my YouTube channel in the next week to 10 days, and I will share the link with you over email. To introduce the panelists, our first panelist is Indu Malhotra, who is Vice President of Cloud Infrastructure Services India for Capgemini. In her current role, she heads the cloud delivery, which includes assessments, migrations, transformation, and operations for global cloud customers across industry verticals. She is a relentless cloud and technology evangelist focused on creating unique solutions for customers leveraging innovation, digital technology in tandem with business focus. A digital business leader with over 20 years of IT experience, spanning application and cloud, conceptualizing, designing, and implementing business and operating models for hybrid and public cloud operations. A global citizen driven by business priorities and customer centricity, with work experience in acquiring new customers, delivering world-class services from India, UK, Hungary, Sweden, Finland, Belgium, France, US, with a rich expertise in digital transformation. Welcome, Indu. We can't hear you, Indu. Sorry.
Thank you, Diksha.
Our next panelist is Dandapani Shanmugam, or Dandu as he is more popularly known. He is the Principal Engineer at GCP Customer Engineering Organization at Google. He is a Master Inventor, Tech Leader and Evangelist, Mentor, Founder and Incubator. He has IT experience of over 24 years. He is one of the Principal Engineers supporting the DN Business Pan India. He has transformed GCP adoption by Indian digital natives across industry segments. He is also an author, blogger, and a master inventor with 100 plus highly valued granted patents and publications in the areas of AI, cloud, mobility, IoT, HMI, and HCI. He is an incubator who is transforming real-world problems into intelligent software products. Welcome, Dandu.
Thanks, Diksha. Good morning, everyone.
I would now like to welcome Subhajit Sarkar, Director, Oracle Cloud APAC, Oracle. Subhajit has over 20 years of experience spanning global organizations like Oracle, Capgemini, Wipro, and Siemens. His key strengths include leading and shaping large industry 4.0 transformation programs from prospect to closure. He also provides advisory expertise, including requirement solicitation and gathering workshops, and converting requirements to tangible POCs and MVPs, and also to scale it up to embed it with large ADM programs. At Oracle Cloud, Subhajit is currently responsible for leading partner for APAC market, focusing on large strategic cloud pursuits. He is KPMG Six Sigma, IBM Blockchain, Oracle GenAI, and Harvard OCM certified. And he can also speak German and Dutch. Welcome, Subhajit.
Thanks a lot, and good morning, everyone.
Representing Mahindra & Mahindra is Abhishek Sukwal. He is Head Cloud Center of Excellence, Mahindra Digital Engine. With over 2 decades of diverse industry experience in technology spanning automotive to telecommunications, Abhijit has been instrumental in setting up the Cloud Center of Excellence at Mahindra & Mahindra. His visionary leadership and commitment to staying at the forefront of technology trends position the conglomerate's businesses as leaders in the rapidly changing landscape of digital innovations. He is focused on strengthening platform solutions by implementing standards and automation, CloudOps, and effective governance with FinOps to enable businesses to quickly onboard the cloud journey, thereby accelerating their digital initiatives. Glad you could join us, Abhishek.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone.
And finally, happy to introduce Piyush Saxena, Senior Vice President, Cloud Business and Offerings Management at HCL Tech. Piyush will also be moderating this session. Piyush has a wide range of business experience with 2 decades in IT, business services, and delivery operations at HCL Tech. As part of HCL Tech, he has been associated with hybrid multi-cloud business, pre-sale solution creation, validation, center of competence and deployment in key customer engagements. He has been responsible for incubation, testing, and go-to-market for solutions and is extremely engaged with global customers in defining and executing the CloudOps vision. Welcome, Piyush. And over to you.
Thank you, Diksha. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for letting me moderate this, diverse and very experienced panel. Looking forward to a very exciting 90 minutes session today. And the way we have structured this panel discussion today is that we'll have few critical topics around CloudOps. We'll discuss these for 75 minutes. Please feel free to key in your questions in the chat window. We'll be constantly monitoring those questions, and then we'll have last 15 minutes to address any questions from the audience. Very interesting topic. All of us have gone through the post-COVID. During the COVID, there was significant cloud migration, and I think in the rush towards cloud, there was a limited focus on CloudOps. And at least in our customer base where we engaged, CloudOps was an afterthought until the economic situation changed, and also a lot of critical workloads, applications migrated to cloud, and people started realizing that there's more to do with CloudOps, and the impact of CloudOps not being consistent is taking a toll on both business as well as the cost. Right now, CloudOps, when we talk to customers and even within the industry, there is different understandings. I just wanted to make sure that we have the right base. CloudOps is short for cloud operations and includes process and practices to manage and support the organization consumptions across cloud, public cloud, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Right, and typically it will encompass people skill management. How do you bring in more agility? How do you optimize the costs? Bring in security and compliance, and it includes cloud administration, operations, and engineering. Right. So with that context, we'll open up the discussion, and probably we'll go with you, Abhishek. The first question which we would like to take is what is the significance of CloudOps, and why is it even more important in the current economic and tech scenarios? It will be great to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, thank you, Piyush. So first of all, I'll say that in today's scenario, when all kind of customer experiences and digitalization is on, every business is now getting digitalized and online. Our conventional business of booking car, we have never thought that people will book online, and when we launched the Scorpio and now car and subsequent models, the online booking is happening to be 80 to 90%. While the scenario was totally different, that people has to come to dealership and the footfall, and they have to fill the inquiry form and all these things. So since the digitalization is happening, the requirement of cloud is also become very prominent, because you require more scale, resilient, and more compute. When you move towards the more and more cloud consumption, and in cases like conglomerate like us, you have a hybrid scenario where you consume all three clouds and you have your data center also because of the complications. Here, the cloud ops becomes so important, otherwise, your cloud cost goes on a bust. Similarly, your availability, you have to ensure your availability, you have to ensure your the cloud cost is right scaling, and all compliance related, your access management, and all those things. Now, the main part is to run a bigger consumption of cloud. If your cloud consumption is very high, if you don't run with cloud ops, then it totally is disintegrated and it becomes very difficult to manage your applications, cloud cost, your security compliance, and in fact, even in certain cases, cloud ops helps in your automated alerts, monitoring, logging, all those observability areas, and SRE basically. So, with those kind of things, it will become difficult if you don't have a cloud to handle this scenario. And this is the right time to invest in CloudOps because every company will have to go in this phase where the digitalization is happening. You have to consume more and more compute, which is you have to go more and more towards cloud. And then cloud can be very expensive. And governance and other things also.
Yeah. Interesting, Abhishek, and key data point being 80 to 90% online booking, which is, major part of your business. And I am assuming this will be heavily dependent on your cloud infrastructure and has a direct impact on your business. So, highlights the criticality of cloud ops. So thanks for sharing that perspective. Coming to Indu, what is your perspective around this area, significance of cloud ops and importance in current scenario?
So I completely agree with the points which Abhishek has raised, right? The accelerated digital transformation that we have had in the last decade, combined with the hyper-personalization, which means providing personalized services to each individual, irrespective of whether, we talked about automobile, but it could be retail, where we all have got so very used to, buying and purchasing online. So entire industry has embraced hyper-personalization and digital transformation, which means there's only one area which can provide the scalability, flexibility, and the ability to have as much data as you want to consume and analyze over a period of point of time to provide those personalized needs. And the answer is cloud. Last year, cloud was about more than 400 billion USD business, and this is scaled to increase to $1 trillion in the next few years. So the adoption is increasing significantly over a period of time. Even from a future standpoint, we see that 45% of IT budget is being reserved for cloud and its associated transformations. So therefore, needless to say, cloud adoption is not something which is going to be an option for enterprises. Now, as we have seen for any new technology, and I would say cloud is new, though it has been there for the last decade, the velocity of changes that happens in cloud, Piyush talked about PaaS services and SaaS services, these are released over Twitter, so that the plethora of technology that is available is immense. And that is something that's never been there before. When you set up a data center in on-premise environment, your infrastructure components and associated technologies remain consistent for a duration, right? So there's a stability of the environment. Whereas here it is very dynamic. Therefore, cloud operations plays a very pivotal role in bringing in the right balance through the balance of best practices about how do we consume cloud, what is the optimal use of cloud, because in many scenarios in the race to cloud, we did a lift and shift, and that has resulted in not really leveraging the benefit of cloud, especially by leveraging the native services, and therefore consequently you have increase in cost as well. Also, the ease of consumption on cloud is so simplified that you have this tendency to keep on trying new things, which is good for business because it gives you good go-to-market, accelerated go-to-market because of that. But it also implies that your assets on cloud could be out of control. Your workloads could be out of control. And how do we have the right governance, observability, and guardrails to ensure that they are managed in an effective manner? And third, but extremely important, is the security and compliance, which has to be integrated as part of both design and, more importantly, in operations, because on a continuous basis, workloads are moving to cloud. How do you ensure that all the workloads are resilient, secure, and cost effective? And those three become extremely important in cloud operations. And that's the value that cloud operations brings. And I agree to you, Piyush, that it's an afterthought. People have not given it enough importance at the onset, because traditionally we have thought of, once the design and implementation is much more difficult than operations. But in reality, in cloud operations, it is somewhat the DevOps and SRE culture has been brought into cloud operations. So it's not traditional operations. You have the DevOps, the application teams to support through their DevOps lifecycle. And then on the other hand, you have the SRE, which is site reliability engineering, and FinOps integrated as part of cloud operations.
Thanks for summarizing and setting the context, Abhishek and Indu. And Indu, very good points around cloud getting to $1 trillion economy, which is huge. Also, complexity you mentioned is very visible across organizations with a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environment, and great points in terms of getting the right balance of best practices, optimal use, people skills. So yeah, that sets the context for the next question, where Dandu, I would like to hear from you. Where do you see AI, ML, Gen AI play within CloudOps, particularly from the automation perspective? And also, since you're working closely with the customers, any specific and leading use cases that you can share with us will be helpful.
Sure, Piyush. Thanks. Thanks to Indu and Abhishek for setting the context and also introducing this CloudOps and the kind of vital role it is going to play in the role in terms of the pace at which we are all trying to adapt, right? So let's share there is something called CloudOps coupled with AI. So I'm sure all of us would be start hearing something called AI Ops, right? So let me introduce what is that, right? It is a thought process or philosophy for us as engineers to focus, invest time, and solve the newer complex problems while we enable and empower machines to resolve the known, repetitive, and identifiable problems. All of them, I'm sure, like Indu and Abhishek, they touched upon cost multiple times. So definitely we enabling machines and also relying on them to take the right decisions would be really helpful for us to be really cost effective, right? So this is AI Ops for me, and it is nothing but how do we made aware? How do we make the machines aware of the various scenarios as human beings we might run into, and also as and when we run into challenges, how do we enable them? How do we train them so that they'll be able to not only take decisions when they encounter, which is reactive in nature. Also, how can they be proactive, right? How can they predict what is going to happen? So this is AI Ops for me. So how do we enable machines to take care of the repetitive, the identifiable problems, and also take corrective measures? Right? So I would say this is the pivotal, right, going forward. Because if you look at if you ask any CloudOps engineer, the kind of problems what they faced or what they've encountered, what is their day-to-day activity 6 months back, it's not the same today. And the pace at which the GenAI and the AI space is evolving, the amount of data, the volume of data, the velocity and variety of data the systems are encountering, it's totally different. And I would say every day is a learning. For any CloudOps engineer, every day is a learning. Right? Given that they need to learn at a faster pace, relying on machines is really important, and train them to be our friends, where they can take care of repetitive tasks, really important, right? So I would say there are four major use cases. That's where the AI ops would play a huge role. Number one is cost management, right? So I'm sure like those who are start using the public cloud would have encountered, okay, say for example, like my engineering team or my test teams would like wanting to have a 32 vCPU kind of a machine. But then over a period of the last 1 week, it looks like only 50% of the compute or the CPU is being used. What can I do for this? Can I have a system which can give the intelligence to me? Hey, engineer, looks like you do have a 32 CPU kind of a machine, but only 50% is being used. Right? So can I get that intelligence, not only what is being used and also who is using and how much of that is being used? Can I get that intelligence? Right? This is first area, first and foremost. It's very important, right? Cost management. Second one is security and compliance. As I said, like in the GenAI and LLM space, the pace at which the experimentations are happening, the newer libraries are getting released, it is humongous, right? So every day I could see a new library getting released, and the engineering teams and research teams would want to use it. So can I have this security and compliance in place? Can I enable machines to help me take the right decision, right? Are my engineers using the right infrastructure, right libraries are being used? Would it lead me to any challenges? Right? That is second area for me. Third one is as CloudOps, right? We all would encounter lots and lots of log and monitoring and profile management kind of alert messages we used to get. But can I have the intelligent content-oriented awareness built into the system? That is where the third area where I would want AI ops to play a role for me. The last one, right, for me is day two operations. If you ask any CloudOps engineer, they would say, I'm spending 70% of time in handling day two operations, and every day it is evolving. Can I have this AI ops to help me in deploying the cluster in the right way? The application performance management coupled with who is doing what and then why is being used. Log management, which is real time in nature. The last one is incident management, right? How can the system suppress the noise and give me exactly what do I need to do? So I would say these are the four areas where cloud ops would evolve by embracing AI and ML, Piyush.
Thanks, Andu. And which one of these four you see the most complex ones?
See, at this point, considering that there is an evolution is happening and everybody wanting to have high-end machines, cost management would definitely play a role. I would say coupled with compliance and security. I mean, as I said, the pace at which we are all trying to catch up. We all wanting to do a lot of good things, but then do I do it in the right way, in a cost-effective way? So I would say cost management coupled with security and compliance definitely play a huge role. Those are the important ones for me, and that's what I'm seeing with my customers as well.
Yeah, security and compliance is always tough. Yeah. Wonderful. Subhajit, your perspective on the same, please.
Okay. Yeah. So, sure, Piyush. I think a lot of good points have been already raised on this. What I feel is, it was mentioned earlier regarding the change in scenario post COVID. So the emergence of cloud natives, that's a big tipping point. I think the amount of cloud native businesses has mushroomed in the last couple of years, and also the kind of focus we have on stuff like cybersecurity and automation has increased significantly in the last 1 year. So if I add these two, and just to add a little bit of perspective from my end also, since I'm handling APAC business, so a lot of customers in APAC business are moving towards multi-cloud kind of scenarios, moving towards specific focus on RPO and RTO kind of scenarios, having enhanced security features to take care of government deals, security deals, defense deals. So those kind of aspects I'm seeing, and I was recently talking to some of the analysts also, and they are also revolving around the same. So if you ask me, the use cases would be mostly revolving around a lot of focus on saving your capex and opex. So RPO and RTO definitely. Enhanced security features, as Dandu already mentioned, accelerated automation features, as also was mentioned earlier. So typically, I would say my focus would be on these 2-3 points.
Sure, Subhajit. Interesting. And also, who is driving these decisions in the organization when you are talking to your customers? So, do you see resistance? Do you see, positive view? What do you see?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, there has been 2 tipping points in the last couple of years. One is the huge emergence of cloud natives. You just see the Indian scenario. There is basically an app to take care of everything, right? It's all an app-based life we are living right now. And second is the emergence of GenAI. The kind of impact GenAI has had on the overall business, which includes processes, which includes automation, which includes chatbots and everything in general. So, from a decision-making perspective for customers, it is now much more easier to convince their stakeholders, and it comes right from the CIO/CTO or CDO, and then it percolates down to division heads for them to identify which are the typical KPIs they would like to drive with the help of CloudOps and GenAI and analytics.
Okay, thank you. Abhishek, bringing you in, you bring the enterprise customer view. Where are you investing and what are your top use cases?
Yeah. So I think the Subhajit and Nandu has what things I will add on this is what GenAI brought into picture. So we are working on AI from last I will say 2019-18, and it was part of emerging technologies. With the onset of GenAI, I think this AI word has gone into CFO cabin and
Sorry, Abhishek, can you come slightly closer? You are quite audible.
My voice is now it's fine.
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you.
Now audible? Okay. So what I was telling is, Subhajit and Nandu has raised a point, and a lot of things which we need to do is. But what has happened with GenAI has acted as a catalyst that this AI term is gone into CFO's cabin, now CEO's cabin, and now it is becomes easy for sponsoring on AI, and then that's where it has acted as a catalyst towards the entire CloudOps or any other AI related initiative which has to be taken. So my friends will agree with who are in the conglomerate that now for AI the budgets are quickly available to use some AI ops tools or something. Now, when coming towards how the GenAI or AI will work on CloudOps will be somewhere GenAI we are using also in case of our repositories where the executives have their knowledge database into and then the GenAI is finding the answers out of and my MTTR increases automatically. So even the new L1 engineer or L2 engineer who has joined, if he is still not aware of much of the problem or what this log means or something which has been resolved earlier by something, so GenAI gives a very crisp solution that you try this, so my MTTR becomes improved. Now, on talking about the AI part, not only GenAI part, forecasting as well as recommendations towards the kind of that's where we are working also, like how to while in our applications normally the consumption part of somewhere how the consumption happens in the throughout the day and on based on that how it is increasing, what kind of right sizing can be done, that is all which is coming. These kind of use cases will help in cost enablement and cost optimization. Basically, these will optimize the cost, continuously monitoring the things, how my consumption is going, and The another good thing which AI ops and we are anticipating, probably it will in future it will become more and more, that how it become a zero ops means your remediation will also happen with your AI only. So it will lead the log and it will find out the solution, and then based on that the solution will be implemented. Right now the GenAI and other things where it still be a co-pilot phase, where we still don't believe or trust that much still. However, 99% they are correct, but still the confidence level is still we are finding. But I think another 2 years or 3 years, a lot of this BAU work will shift to left, and the new things where the people will work and the productivity will come, and that's what the conglomerate wants also. They want a productivity, because when I spend, let's say, 100 crore, my target to have run this show should be 15 to 20%, and we are trying to reduce it further and further every year, so that how we can reduce the overhead cost on the actual consumption of compute in the services. Because you require the other things also to run the business. You require resources, you require tools, you require observability tools, many other things you invest. So there is if you spend 100 rupees on a compute, you spend another 20 rupees on managing the entire show. So how you can reduce that 20 rupees is where the AI will really, and we are finding that using these AIs and implementing into but it is not coming as a whole right now, but small features where it can be done, it is really impacting our cost also. So the overhead cost is reducing by the help of AI and automation. I will say AI and automation put together, they will work hand in hand, and that's what.
Yeah. Thanks. So shift left, predictive, more focus on cost, interesting, use cases. And, we are getting some interesting questions on also, please keep them coming. Some of these we are addressing, and some of these we'll pick up at the later part of the session. So, we talked about use cases, but of course, there are challenges while implementing a lot of these use cases in an enterprise environment. Things like Gen AI, we all know there are things like hallucinations. Then there is shadow IT. Who is the one in the organization driving these initiatives? Then there is tech sprawl. There are compliance, regulatory requirements and angles. It will be good to understand what are the implications of these challenges on cloud ops, and what are the guardrails being set up. It will be good to hear some of the best practices that the customers are adopting to circumvent these challenges. Indu, maybe we can start with you on this one.
Sure. So it's an interesting and challenging question, right? It talks about challenges of generative AI, specifically in CloudOps space. So I think the first point is generative AI is also predominantly powered by cloud. So that's the first point, which is there are businesses, it could be customer service, marketing, other functions who would like to explore how they can leverage generative AI. And naturally, they would lean towards experimenting on cloud, right, where they have most of their data, and they can also scale their requirements and explore how GenAI could be useful for them. So the first component is there's going to be an increase in the compute, storage, and data, and how and the generative AI applications on top of it, which eventually will have to be supported by CloudOps. Therefore, the asset and data sprawl is bound to happen, because some of these would be exploratory in nature. It may not be fully qualified business use cases. So that's one aspect, which means the whole, we have been talking about cost, because that's, I think, the theme of the year and for our conversation as well. So cost is going to play an extremely important role. How do we identify that any of these explorations are cost effective, and has the business understood the implication of exploring these use cases? So there has to be a voice of reason in all of these transactions. So that's the first aspect of it. Now, very crucial aspect is the security and compliance, because generative AI is going to sit on top of data, ingest data from various sources, identify the patterns based on the LLM models that it is being trained on, and come up with the outcomes. Now, these outcomes today are being used more in augmenting and accelerating the function of our teams, whether it is cloud operations or any other operations for that matter. It is augmenting their functions and making it faster. But eventually, from the detect, flagging concerns, it will move to predict, and eventually actions will have to be taken based on that. So we have to be very cautious on what we are training the models on, the data, because eventually this data has been put together over years based on human inputs, which could be knowledge article, knowledge bases, and so on, and the system data, which has also evolved over a period of time. So we have to carefully choose the sources of our data for these LM models, and then train our GenAI to be able to consume them and give us the patterns that we look at. I believe, I've seen success where the use case is very clear. So if we are very clear about a use case that, let's say we want to reduce our mean time to resolution, MTTR, that is our use case. And if you go ahead with that, we are able to see much better outcomes, because then you can really, create the slivers of data that is required instead of exposing complete information to a generative AI and then leading to hallucinations and biased information coming as an outcome, because then that reduces the confidence on the GenAI outputs, and it's basically it's a self goal. You're basically destroying your own use case. So it's very important that we choose the right use case to begin with, apply it on a smaller data set. When we have the right level of confidence, you can start expanding your use cases around it, and I think that has given better benefit. Also, while GenAI is being talked about today, and mostly due to ChatGPT and its fantastic, rise that has happened over the last year. And therefore, it has become a boardroom conversation and everybody wants to look at generative AI. But AI has been there for a very long period of time, and it has been used in operations also using multiple tools. So how can we build on that experience to take it to the next level and enrich using generative AI is something that's going to play a very important role. Case in point being, how do I, at this point of time, let's say a CloudOps engineer, how would he have the information to, one, learn new technologies quickly, two, identify the patterns which would take enormous amount of time earlier looking at various data sources, identify the patterns with the help of a generative AI, and give a faster resolution. So those scenarios are coming up very quickly, and I think there's a lot of appetite for it both within business as well as IT to take up such use cases.
Yeah, exciting space for sure. It will be good to see, how soon we are able to make it mainstream. Nandu, Google has been at the forefront of driving GenAI. From the industry point of view, what is that you are seeing around this?
Yeah, sure. So to add to what Ritu has listed down, I would look at from three different perspectives. One is perspective of training, right? How would we help training? The second one is the perspective of serve or inferencing. The third one is how do I manage my systems, like whether my system is on-premise or system is in cloud. How do I manage this? So these are the three different perspectives. I generally see the challenges, and then the customers are slowly getting into the adoption and they are able to evolve. Right? Let's look at the training. So what happens is, what is good? What is enough? How do I find an answer to this question? Right? So there is no right or wrong answer on day one. So this is something which we need to evolve. Right? When this kind of an openness comes into picture, then how much volume of data is enough for me to train? How many such open source libraries are good enough for me to train? How much of an open source models are good enough for me to get started? right? So for example, like, am I good with the 7 billion, 30 billion, 13 billion, or a 70 billion, 128 billion kind of a model, right? So these are very, very broad and open questions. Where do I need to train for the kind of use case what I'm going to address? So if you look at it, some of these things what I mentioned and what Indu also touched upon, what used to be an architect decision is no more an only architect decision. Right? For any such major decisions, now multiple of these divisions need to work in tandem. An architect need to, meaning a product manager need to work in close association with the architect. Architect need to work in close association with the data scientists, data science teams, as well as CloudOps. All of them need to go hand in hand because everybody is dealing with an unknown, and also we are trying to define the problem while we are running. Right? So that is where this training phase has a lot of unknowns, and how do we deal with that? That is number one for me. Number two is inference, right? I'm sure we all would have heard there's something called NSFW, not safe for work, right? And Indu also did mention about hallucination. So what is hallucination? It varies from use case to use case and also the persona to persona. And what is not safe for work? It also varies from industries to industry, right? Something not safe. Good for enterprise, it may not be safe for a company which is only dealing with BFSI kind of a segment. So likewise, there are many unknowns, right? How do I have the guardrails in place in my serving layer so that I'll be able to serve what is really important? So this is inference for me. Third comes the volume, data volume, right? So humongous amount of data is really required for us to train. And how do I demarcate between what is required for my training as well as my testing and what is required for me to serve? So imagine a situation, a CloudOps team which were handling, let's say, a few petabytes of data. Suddenly they would be thrown into a problem of, okay, you need to deal with 200 petabytes of data. Then comes, oh, how do I store? Where do I store? Then how do I manage cost? Right? What used to be one unit become 100 units for me now. How do I manage this? Right? Given this kind of I would say an exponential growth happened in a span of weeks or a couple of months' time. How do I do that? So that's where I would say an AI ops or apply intelligence or get to use the intelligence if it is coming from, let's say, the cloud systems or the open source systems, if it is coming, as long as it is all like secure. How do I effectively store? Meaning, do I need to keep the entire, let's say, 200 petabytes into an active storage, or can I move some of them into an archive storage so that I'll be able to make the best use of it? And the last one is, how do I handle the data effectively? Whatever used to be my data pipeline, it may not be enough, right? What was good a month back is not good enough for me because suddenly I would say the boardroom decisions being made. Then I need to start supporting more use cases. The product managers came with innovative, cool ideas. But then for me to support, I need to have data sources from multiple. What used to be like 3 sources, now I need to deal with 5 sources. Then how do I handle such kind of a rise of the data sources effectively so that I need not rewrite anything, everything from scratch. I'll be able to do delta additions. As CloudOps, I'll be able to support this delta additions and I'll also be able to handle data. So net, I would say training, inference, as well as data handling. Right? These are very important for us to be effective, right? Cost effective.
Yeah, looks very exciting, but you need to have the right approach for sure to get the right outcomes. So thanks for sharing that. And I think we are getting few questions. I will prioritize one of the questions here, which is I think the most sought after, question by everyone around skilling. How are the existing roles changing and what are the emerging job role functions? What is the skilling areas, where upskilling is required? And I think the most asked question is, what do you recommend to people looking at building these skills in the Gen AI space? So a lot of questions around this in the chat as well. Subhajit, would you like to take this one and share your experience?
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm not surprised that GenAI has sparked a lot of interest. It's, as Indu mentioned, it has been the boardroom talk. It has been a press room talk. It's in the talks everywhere, right? And but also what is to be noted is it's not come from nowhere. It's not parachuted down. It is an offshoot of AI, which was always there, which also Indu mentioned. So for someone who has been in this space, whether it is provisioning, whether it is managing, whether it is enhancing the apps, in the data side, storage side, compute side, it depends. I think from a current perspective, it is important to have a lot of upskilling scenarios. So if someone has been doing DevOps, they can think about having security skills. They can think about having GenAI skills. All the hyperscalers, Dandu would agree, are currently providing these kind of certifications. A lot of them are free. At least the foundation levels are free. People can opt for it to get a basic understanding of what is the architecture all about, what is the whole, how the whole platform works, and then they can keep on adding those building blocks based on the kind of journey they would want to take. But at the end of the day, it is all about having the right blocks in space. So if you are able to do managed services, if you are able to do analytics, if you are able to do DevOps, I think you are pretty much there in this space. Those would be my 2 cents. And apart from that, I think the market is evolving significantly. So the way we see GenAI right now won't be there in the next 6 months. So, there is every need for someone to be very agile, very adaptive to the current set of skills what we have and keep on upskilling on those parts. Yeah.
Yeah. So great point. So, fundamental understanding of GenAI concepts and then implementation of that in your core domain, and then continuous learning because this space is evolving so fast. Those are the key guidelines. Abhishek, in your organization, how are you tackling this challenge of upskilling, getting people ready for GenAI?
In Mahindra, we on the GenAI perspective, what we have done is we have started our own platform as Mahindra AI. So when you talk about GenAI, then in GenAI, you will have to use many models. Maybe if you want to use OpenAI, ChatGPT, their models, GPT-4, 3 or something. If you want to use AWS Bedrock, or you want to use Meta, you want to use Falcon, or various models you want to use, the security is a concern, first of all. There was one incident which has happened. One corporate has pasted something on ChatGPT and it went into public. So, as a conglomerate, what we did is we made a Mahindra AI. We took the OpenAI services as an enterprise where from the Azure, and we are using Google Palm also. So, Google is a Bard and Palm is the enterprise version, Palm text to chat, and these kind of services. And we have made our own Mahindra OpenAI as a platform for democratizing for the people. Now, where at this stage, but we are launching our customer bots also on GenAI, so we have enough knowledge on GenAI, how to use them. So we have how to parse the data. We can upload our sources of data, use a vector database and hybrid search RRF models to so that it does not hallucinate. We give our sources only to talk. That's where I was talking about when we are talking about AI ops. When we go to the outside world, the hallucination can happen. But when your sources are there, so what I understand from GenAI is keep the profiling of the person. Like say, GenAI train the accountant for us who understand Indian business chartered accountancy, right? Now you give your source of data, your balance sheet, and ask him to calculate for me. So that is how these LLM models, especially if you talk about Palm or these bigger models, 120 billion models, their parameters are trained on the profile, how they understand, put context, put the logic. So how to utilize them based on our data is very important for a conglomerate. And so we have made our own platform for people to use it, use their test cases, so that the governance still keeps with me, so that if it hallucinates, they come to us. We have our own team who's working on this. We have some support from the cloud service provider also, like Google and Azure and AWS. They also help us. We are also working on the imaging diffusion models also. So how diffusion model can work, can help marketing team to create marketing images or something. So there, and then making this guild across the organization, where people, since we have these kind of guilds and channels available in Mahindra, where people who are interested to join them, and then they post their questions on the forum and they want to learn. So these way we are finding out the new use cases, while I am diverting the topic to GenAI rather than CloudOps. But this is how the GenAI skill will happen, not only specific to CloudOps, but this is how the people are learning.
Yeah, I think that's those two topics are interrelated. I mean, we need to have these skills to have an effective cloud ops, and it will become only critical. But great points, and great to see that Mahindra is democratizing the entire process, and people who are really interested have an opportunity to be part of this entire skilling program. Yeah. So switching the topic slightly, while we are talking about cloud ops, Gen AI, but a lot happens at the background to enable these things. And also, good to understand that existing cloud infrastructure is getting upgraded to handle the processing that is required to run these kind of Gen AI use cases, be it in terms of processing power or be it in terms of storage capacity. What are the requirements on the hardware compute power side to enable these use cases, and what are the challenges companies facing? Because a lot of infrastructure still continues to be legacy on-prem. In cloud, the cost seems to be kind of prohibitive for some of the customers. Maybe the understanding is not there. It will be good to understand how customers are navigating this challenge. Dhandu, would you like to share your perspective on this?
Yeah, sure, Piyush. So let's look at it from two different perspectives, right? One is for the providers, and the second one is for the consumers, right? So both the systems need to evolve at the same pace. So let's start with like generally what happens with the providers. Again, I'm not wearing the Google hat at this point. Just as an engineer, if I want to look at it, what would happen at the infrastructure side for us to support? Say, for example, right, the requirement of GPUs, which is becoming like I would say very important, right? Compute power, which needs to be available. The moment I say the higher the compute power, even the storage also need to evolve along with it. Meaning, let's say I'm getting like what used to be an X unit or 1 unit of compute power. If it becomes 10x, if it becomes 20x, right? The same IOPS and throughput I need to get from my storage as well. Right? How do we evolve both of these? That is number two. Then number three, what used to be a network storage may not be sufficient if we have to deal with the pace at which we are doing the processing, the amount of data what we are storing, and can I store it elsewhere, and will I be able to get the same 20x of processing output or the efficiency of what I'm investing? The answer would be no. Then there comes then I need to store everything along with it becomes like the laptop what we carry, the computer what we carry. It needs to become like that, but it should be like a supercomputer which I need to carry. So can I do that? Right? The answer is no. Then there comes, if I cannot do that, I need to have like a 20x of compute. I need to have a storage which needs to have the IOPS and throughput. But then I cannot use a network storage. Then what do I need to do? Right? I mean, how do I find an answer to this? Then we need to have the solid state drives, and then like drives with higher IOPS and higher throughput, more than what we are using. Right? The provider systems need to evolve for this, number one. Number two, it's not only about like I mean, we have been referring to billions, models with billions of parameters and tokens. If that is what I need to deal with the kind of use cases, would I be okay with a single box? I did talk about, okay, it looks like everybody need to carry a supercomputer, or I need to have a supercomputer in one box. Would it be possible? May not be possible. Then there comes this distributed nature. Right? Again, we are getting into what we underwent in the last, I would say, 20, 30 years in the industry. Like from mainframe, we have gone into commodity, then from there we gone into distributed. Same thing need to happen here as well, but for a higher volume of data to be shared. Say, for example, like if I have to deal with let's say a 70 billion model, then I need to, let's say, 1 billion translated into 1 GB, which means that 70 GB of data I should be able to transfer in no time. How do I able to do that, right? Which means the underlying system need to have such a huge infrastructure network for it to handle, so that I won't be wasting. I mean, like all of us will be start thinking, I am investing on such a huge infrastructure. I don't want to have any idle time, which means that the network also need to evolve. Right? So if you look at it, all the entire ecosystem need to get evolved, so that like the providers will be able to give the best of the best hardware, right, the infrastructure to the consumers. From the consumer side, like what is good for me, what is enough for me, right? And so where will I make a decision? Do I need to use a GenAI or an LLM for every use case, or I'm going to be a little more calculative and I'm going to use it, or I'm going to augment that with what I've been already doing. So how can I make such a decision? So I would say a collective decision amongst all of these various, I would say the parameters would be really required when we are embarking into this kind of a journey.
Interesting. Again, this is a fast evolving space. It will be good to see and keep a close watch on how things evolve from here. So Abhishek, from the consumer view, what is your approach in terms of handling these challenges? How are you addressing?
Challenges are on GenAI, particularly as a consumer. There are two options. If I go for open source, or I consume, and what rightly said by him is based on my requirement, I have to decide how many tokens I require as a consumer. Because what he is saying is 160 billion parameters model, if I have to run, if I don't have that much of requirement itself, I will pay huge amount which is not required. So whether I will go with Google Palm solution or some SaaS-based solution where the token system is there, where they will charge me for each of the token, and then I do. And there is a narrow use case where I think that the use case is particularly to, let's say, my agribusiness or something which is very there, and the huge. I don't require such a big model to learn, and something which is very specific. Then I can have my own. We have a lot of open source LLM models available, and I think more than 5,000 LLM models now on Hugging Face if you go. And today when I'm talking about 5,000, maybe if you will go, it will be 5,500 models. So it is continuously evolving in that field. So you select a smaller model and then you train for your use case, but it always depends on your use case. And then you have to decide based on the cost, and it should be outcome based. So eventually what I'm getting from it. So likely I told that I will save some money on my support engineers if I use this LLM, but if LLM costs me more than support engineer, because in Indian context, right? So you're not paying in dollars. So maybe in European context or US context, sometimes it will be more better high billion those GPU cost. But in India, GPU cost will hit you in a cost perspective. So we have to be very careful, have to be very outcome based, and you have to think that what use case you are using, where it makes sense to go build or buy.
Great perspective. I think that's a very pragmatic approach to addressing this challenge. Take decision based on the use cases, keep cost in mind and always focus on outcomes. I think that also leads to the next question, which is around, cost has been the key discussion topic, as Indu earlier also highlighted. Now, FinOps is an integral part of CloudOps as well. And how is this shaping up to manage Gen AI use cases that we are talking about? And Abhishek also talked about close linkage between cost and Gen AI and CloudOps. So Indu, it will be great to hear your perspective in terms of how you are looking at it.
I think Nandu and Abhishek clearly explained that the cost of generative AI has to be kept in mind, and the cost is significant and substantial. Right? So that is pretty much established. If we look at, even in the context of public information, if you see today, a chat GPT query consumes 15 times more compute and therefore also the carbon emission compared to Google search. So that's the kind of increase in compute that might be required for generative AI. Therefore, FinOps, which so far has been more of a bolt-on or an add-on service on cloud operations, wherein you start building additional capability of sharing your best practices and implement consciously into the cloud ecosystem, so that you start optimally using cloud features and functionalities, which could be through ensuring that your non-production environments are down over the weekend, and there are multiple use cases that you have already implemented as part of FinOps. But on the other hand, there is an aspect which now has to be taken into consideration. Earlier, FinOps used to have some runway. We had some breathing space to go ahead and implement it. But now, in the context of generative AI, and as the adoption of generative AI continues to increase in business, you will have to immediately have observability and anomaly detection, which can help us, again, be the voice of reason and go back to the business and say, guys, appreciate all of your enthusiasm. We are looking at these use cases, but we are also consequently looking at this increase in the workloads that are there on cloud. If it makes sense, perfectly all right. Otherwise, please don't. And then the decisions can be much more faster and much more precise, when all of this comes into picture. By the way, we can also use generative AI to enable us in this journey, right? What I mean to say by that is, if you look at all the bills that are generated by hyperscalers, there are plethora of services, there's so much of segmentation. So a bill is quite a complex thing to deal with. So you can apply generative AI on top of it and get much more useful information, which is understood by the business. And they can also look at, is my database using so-and-so resources? What is the consumption pattern over the last 6 months? And business can start making certain decisions about it, right? Whether they want to archive some of the information or would they like to continue it on a more high performance and so on and so forth. So I think it is going to help us augment the whole journey of FinOps and getting that to the business, make it much more closer to business and have rapid decisions also. And also, we can partner with the business in context of applying generative AI, and therefore what is its consequence on cloud and other workloads as well in that journey. The third point which I wanted to raise about FinOps and generative AI working together is FinOps by design is something which has always been underplayed. We have always been in the rush towards the cloud journey and really accelerating the migration. And FinOps by design never played an important component, right? But now with generative AI, FinOps by design and setting up the right governance at onset is going to become much more crucial. And therefore, providing the right consultancy to our clients right at the onset to design their ecosystems, specifically on generative AI, but it is actually wider for cloud. But now generative AI gives us the opportunity to talk about it much more impactfully, and there is a customer acceptance towards it as well. So we can establish much more robust FinOps governance right from FinOps by design, setting up the right governance in partnership with business and product managers, and then executing them through the CloudOps cycle.
Yeah, very true. I think it's a cultural transformation for many organizations, and observability, anomaly detection, cloud cost management, and governance by design, very key to FinOps and CloudOps. Abhishek, how are you in your organization tackling these challenges around FinOps? Yeah.
So, first of all, we have established Cloud Center of Excellence, and I think that is the right decision for such kind of big scale cloud consumption, or you want to go for a journey, because then there is a focused team who is working on particularly on the cloud. So, when you talk about Cloud Center of Excellence, their work is to on the cloud ops, cloud security, and FinOps particularly. And FinOps is the major area where we focus as of now. We use our own. There is a dedicated team who looks after the FinOps part of it, continuously looking after the new workloads, their tagging, their cost chargebacks, and the anomaly detections and those things. While we are using some tools also to use tools we are using which also do the anomaly detection, and this now after onset of GenAI and other AI available on the prediction side and forecasting side, we are trying it out there. But as Indu rightly said, because this was actually when people want to go on cloud, so everybody wants to go on cloud. Nobody thinks about it on first, and then slowly and slowly. So what I think is at present the FinOps has a lot of work still going on, and that will eventually will happen, because right now the detection of unused computes, unused disks. This was the first thing which we found in 2021 to 22, right? And then we saved around, I think, 30% of our consumption or something by first year, 35. The expectation of the business was, okay, you guys can save 35 every time, but the lemon is squeezed now. Now the new methods which we have to do now, snoozing methods, right sizing, using of spot instances, and eventually in cloud, the new things are always coming. So your FinOps team also has to be skilled and finding out the new ways of how to save money. And when the direction of that particular team is to save and optimize the cloud workload, I think every conglomerate should think about setting up one, particularly because they will eventually their cost is saved by saving a lot of money which comes out of from cloud. This is my experience is focused approach is required. Developer and business projects never give so much importance on cloud. They give importance on the, like if you talk about developer or a solution architect from the application side, he will always say, I want to have performance better, so I will do the sizing with a factor of safety of 2. But the objective of a FinOps guy will be, okay, you are not utilizing more than 25%, why you want this much compute? So that check is always there, so that maker-checker kind of things works together, couples together. So I think that's where you should have one dedicated team working towards FinOps, and that's the only way I think it works. Otherwise, not.
Great insights. And Abhishek, are you already utilizing AI, GenAI for FinOps, or something under consideration?
AI we are using, GenAI we are not using. GenAI we right now not using because GenAI still we are using for those use cases. GenAI cannot have a much better prescriptive or descriptive because of the token limitation which the models have. So you cannot send a huge data in one go. So GenAI is not a good thing for statistical analysis. So we are using AI models to find out those. GenAI is more on the contextual human kind of. So we are using for our support systems or bot systems or finding. So GenAI is something which can understand But within the 32K tokens, which is the maximum, which right now is there, 32K tokens. So that's where we are using AI models in where it find out the trend, and based on trend it is doing. But still, we have started on this FinOps area. So the data we are collecting now will eventually make the model more and more better going forward.
Wonderful. Thanks. Great perspective. And with that, I think we come to an end of our Q&A for this panel. I would request you, and it has been an interesting and very thought-provoking session. We also have few questions, but before going to questions, I would request each one of you to, for our broader CloudOps community, share what are the 2 or 3 key focus areas for the next I think short term 1 to 2 years that you would recommend for them. We'll go with Indu.
Sure. I think after an interesting discussion, a lot of thoughts I think will keep us busy for the next few days in terms of ideas. So I think the first and the foremost focus area for all of us should be skill and capability development, because we have to embrace generative AI. New roles will emerge like prompt engineering, understanding of the LLM models, and how can we bring in a both cost and sustainable way of ingesting and processing data on generative AI. So the skill and capability development, I think, will be at the forefront for us from a focus standpoint. At Capgemini, we are committed towards it. There's already been a public announcement of 2 billion euros investment in the next 2 years, specifically in generative AI, and that focus will continue. The second point, which we have talked through the session today as well, is to be very clear and sharp about the use cases that we are going to implement in generative AI, whether in CloudOps or from a business perspective, but specifically in CloudOps as well. We have to be sharp about it, because we have to bear in mind that today, if you look at the Gartner hype cycle, generative AI is right at the peak of inflated expectations. So everybody is talking about it, but peak of inflated expectation follows through with a peak of disillusionment, where people realize what is the trade-off. And also, and that's where the cost benefit of implementing GenAI versus the cost of GenAI has to be understood. And when we go ahead with these use cases, the security and compliance aspect, as well as we didn't talk about it, but there are ethical aspects also which have to be considered. What about bias that comes into the data? How will that be processed, etc.? So those areas are being explored, and they will change, and we have to stay tuned to all of these aspects. Last but not the least, because sustainability is very close to our heart at Capgemini, we have to bear in mind the sustainability impact also. The ESG impact of using generative AI is quite high. It is 15 times over a normal compute, by and large, which means we have to be very conscious about what we are using generative AI for, and how do we work along with our clients to keep that right balance, not only from an operations, governance, and FinOps side, but also from a sustainability point of view.
Thanks, Indu. Abhishek?
So I agree with Indu particularly on the sustainability part. I think we have to be very cautious about what kind of use case, and I totally agree that the hype is so much that when the businesses comes to us, the things which can be done with the normal bot framework, they want to use generative AI. Why? Because it's fascinating. Look how it talks about human and human way it communicates, and people are fascinated about it. While it may not be useful, you can work from a bot framework itself is something where we suggest to the business why you want to spend so much of money when it's not required. GenAI use cases are specifically should be kept separately, which can be used with GenAI. Regarding when we are talking about the talent and how the training capabilities are there. Yes, you need to have the new role emerging as a prompt engineers who will understand how the prompting has to be done. Similarly, they will also understand on, well, I found that one more thing which will come as a career for people to understand is how the vector search, hybrid search, and these searches works. Because when you search out the source of document, when your source becomes very large, then for LLM first you have to search on the context and find out the right sources of document and then send to LLM to answer it. So those areas is also something which will, I think people are learning about that because this area was also, people were not very much doing in that area of vector search or hybrid search or sparse vector search and all this area. Now that has to be coupled with GenAI. So if somebody want to understand on the prompt engineering GenAI, they need to understand those searches also. Where we are working on this, as I told you, we have a platform, democratize and make a guild to train people, understand where the use case will be. So we have to keep watch on this technology, how quickly it is evolving. So GenAI is one part of it. The another part is of image generation, which is also fascinated in our organization. So somehow everybody wants to do it, but one image generation will cost you 10 to 15 rupees. So you have to find out the cost, if this cost is justifiable to use or not. It may be fascinating, but the right use case, right use, and the cost also. That is important.
Perfect. And same applies for when you are using GenAI for CloudOps. All these considerations have to be taken care of. Subhajit?
Yeah, so one is, really amazing discussion. We have had product vendor perspective, we have had industry perspective, services perspective. So all the angles are covered. I think for the audience, this is the best outcome they can have. From a summary perspective, what I would say is, I mentioned that earlier. There's a huge surge towards multi-cloud. There's a huge surge towards digital natives. So on-demand availability, on-demand scalability, this is going to stay as one of the key areas of growth, as a key areas of focus for all cloud vendor providers. And the second is, I think Indu really touched upon it very, very well in terms of, so GenAI is not a standalone topic. There is a GPU part of it, there is the LLM part of it. Any way you look at it, it's burning a lot of compute. Any way you look at it, it requires a lot of sustainability, it requires an ESG angle. So there's a governance in terms of that, and there's a governance in terms of ethics, which is the responsible AI. If we are able to take care of these aspects, I think we are riding the wave, but the wave is crazy. I mean, I was just discussing in another panel in IIT a couple of days ago that before GenAI dropped in, it was metaverse. Everyone was talking about a year back. And the key focus was metaverse. And then suddenly ChatGPT dropped the latest version and everything changed. So this is how rapidly things are changing. So let us not be complacent. Let us be on the toes. And let us keep upskilling our workforce with these different skills. That would be my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Nandu, key focus area next to 1 to 2 years, CloudOps perspective.
Yeah, so Piyush, I would look at it from 4 different perspectives again. One is, how can I be responsible? Meaning, like, how do I should treat the industry and my use case like how I teach my own kid. If I'm going to teach my own kid, how much consciousness I would be in terms of what do they need to learn, what they shouldn't be learning. So likewise, can I apply a similar analogy to what I'm going to do, right? Can I wear a similar hats for me to be responsible? That is number 1 for me. Number 2, right storage and the right query mechanisms, right? So all of us touched upon that. It is really important for me to do that and do it right at the first time. Right? How can I do that? Then the third one is multimodal. Again, this is purely driven by the use case and the requirement and the budget which I have for me to reach. So it's multimodal because this is where the industry is going towards. So how do I choose a use case and how do I serve a use case? Is multimodal really required and how do I do it? For me to do these three, which is really important, is unlearn, relearn, and then learn the fundamentals. It's probably we cannot be superficial at this juncture. We need to seriously pick up the things like I would say machine learning, deep learning, and AI. Have an understanding, right? For each of the roles in IT, I think from now onwards, a thorough understanding of what's happening in the ML, AI, and deep learning is really required so that I'll be able to make the right decision. It would require investment from our side, and it would be an evolving space. It's not like, okay, I've learned data structures, I'm good for the next, let's say, few years. I don't think we are getting into that kind of a space anymore, right? So continuously unlearn and relearn. How do we do that? Yeah. So I would say, these are the 4 different focus areas for me as an individual. And again, Piyush, I thoroughly enjoyed and learned a lot of things. I took a 1-page worth of notes from all what I've heard from you guys. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
No, excellent. And I really like this learn, unlearn, and learn the fundamentals. At times I observe myself and I think I am probably learning more than my kids are doing. I have to keep pushing them to please study. I am also studying. So that's an interesting part of the we can't be complacent as
now it is with everyone. So if you are a cook, you make a cake or something, you have to learn variety of cakes. You have to learn every day, dishes every day. If you any job now you pick, the change is the constant, and it's changing so rapidly with the communication and the connectedness of the world is there. So everywhere when we are talking, something new is something must be developing somewhere new, and will soon be on our table. Another point which I want to add with this is to unlearn is what sometimes what happens is the people will find it difficult because as a human being we are always scared of losing something which we have gained. So if I have worked 6 months in CCNA and then I come and in cloud and I found that okay, I don't require CCNA now. Now why I have invested 6 months there? And then you have fear to lose and you don't want to, then you become stringent about not unlearning that. The basic, I agree with, so that's the reason why people don't unlearn. Because you have invested 2 years in that and then you say, "Acha, so technology is not there. Now this technology itself is not there, then what?"
Right.
So it's very difficult. Though it's very difficult, yeah.
So great. I think we have 10 minutes. Let's take few questions. I noticed a number of interesting questions, but I'm not sure how many of these have been already answered. So any one of you who has already answered one of these questions, it will be good if you can pick few while I analyze few others. I saw Dhandu, a lot of questions were addressed to you. Would you want to just pick a couple of those? Abhishek, same thing for you. Even if you have keyed in, just if you can just reply on this.
So I think there was one question on multi-cloud where you were, I think Subhash was asking that question. In multi-cloud, how to handle the scenario where he has given an example also, like if I want to generate MX large in AWS compute, then how should I do it? So what I suggest to this is nowadays in the market, when we started in Mahindra, we started with our own platform. So we made our own platform, which is on Golang and Terraform based, where we have democratized to the users that they can make their own compute and other things. Cloud Center of Excellence just support them. For this highway, they come, they put their credit card, means their cost center, and you can generate a standard reference architecture which is allowed by security. So it becomes very faster for you to onboard. So if you can, so again, moving towards left, everything which is automated for people as a ISC and which is already approved by security and your compliances and your image of your compute, if Windows or Ubuntu or something which you've already finalized, then it can be moved faster. But there is a challenge where the networks itself of Azure, Google, or VPCs trend differently or accounts projects and there. I think what is there is some of the, either you create your own product, which we did in 2021, where there were many people were there. But now I see that there are many people approach to me, which they have these kind of tools available. Even with the startup companies have done it. You can find out. Now, no tool will be doing, will solve your all problems. Like you ask for security and all. I think if you're going with CSPM tool, or you include some tool, those have APIs now. You can integrate your APIs in the platform and then you can create the overall solution. Single solution will be difficult for addressing all your issues.
I agree. I think that's the way we have to look at it. I will pick one question that is addressed to me. It got answered, is it? Just moved. I think the question was more around, how do you, hi Piyush, you mentioned enterprise facing challenges on-prem and struggling on cloud with potential lock-ins. Do you think the open and cloud agnostic LLMs can be an option which allows enterprises with the freedom? I think, we have already answered, but I will share my perspective, and which is very similar to what Abhishek already shared. I think all these decisions have to be very use case specific with, a cost, consideration, and what kind of outcomes at what pace you are looking at. So whether you are building your own, probably SLM or LLMs, or you are using open LLMs, SLMs, is completely dependent on use case maturity of these solutions available in the market, what cost you are going to incur in build versus buy, and what outcomes you are looking at. Also, I think there is a increasing concern about data resiliency, right? Which customers are adding to these three aspects, making sure that some of the confidential or business critical data is well protected wherever it is, whether it is sitting on-prem or in cloud, right? So those are the key considerations. Again, like in case of tools for FinOps, here also there is no single answer. It has to be very use case specific. Yeah. What else is there? Sustainable FinOps. Indu, any?
I think I looked at that question and therefore I responded as well. From a sustainability point of view, that's something which, along with FinOps, is going to play a very vital role. And advising our customers specifically on not just the cost implication, but the sustainability and ESG impact is going to be quite crucial as we adopt generative AI in what we do, as well as what customers will start adopting over a period of time.
Okay, thanks. I think Chandrasekhar has a couple of questions, but this is when we talk about training or scaling, reskilling, what is the panel's view on providers versus enterprises adopting various models to train their workforce? There is a collaboration with third party or bringing in their own platforms, but how and by what means it is being analyzed or measured in terms of effectiveness and more, and other areas. I think we see a different approach being taken by different enterprises. Mostly customers are prioritizing their use cases, and then also making sure that they democratize the complete, as Abhishek talked about Mahindra example. I think that's what most of the customers are looking at. They're creating their own internal training enablement programs, but they are giving very specific, clear guidance to their workforce in terms of what skills they should acquire, where is the organization going to invest in, and then as Subhajit talked about, there are fundamental GenAI and CloudOps training programs which everyone is looking into. Now, these could be internal programs, these could be third-party programs, and that's the approach most of the customers are taking. I think one thing that we have at HCL Tech focused on is on the job training, while courses and other things are give you theoretical knowledge, improves your fundamentals, but on job scenarios and training for practical use cases is where the focus is.
Well, Piyush, I'll just add to that. So I think there is also an element of effectiveness which is asked. The effectiveness cannot be measured in isolation. It has to be done on the job, as you said. And the second aspect is the industry element. So the kind of clients you are serving, whether it is an agro client, whether it is a retail client, defense client, manufacturing client, etc., the use cases will vary. So if you are having an orientation of the kind of advancements of the certain technologies making in those kind of industries, that will help a lot of alignment between business and technology. Because if we look at technology in isolation, it cannot really work in any way. That's the way I look at it.
Yep, perfect. I think we have few more questions, but we are out of time. Diksha, you just want to come in and conclude the session?
Yes, thank you very much. It was again another eye-opener of a session. Even I took down 3-4 pages of notes. But very quickly to summarize, I think between CloudOps and GenAI, it is about complementary technologies. The focus should be on how do you consume cloud, right? How best management of resources, how do you consume, optimize cloud, have the right guardrails in place and the security. Some use cases that were talked of is in terms of cost management, security and compliance, you said were the most complex. But there is also use cases in terms of predictive analytics, accelerated automation, data operations, forecasting and recommendations, and also around savings, CAPEX and OPEX. Challenges, I think one thing that stood out for me was the stress on defining use cases. Not just being able to apply AI to the use cases, identifying them, but also very, very clearly defining use cases, and that will make all the difference. Also, I think Nandu mentioned about being able to have good data for training and inferencing, and also being able to manage the data volumes. That was one. And in terms of FinOps, yes, I think Indu got it right when she said FinOps by design. So it is no longer a good to have, it is a must have. And it is not something that can come later. It has to be right from the start of the journey. So it's like we have security by design and FinOps by design. So I think those are the things. And of course, the focus on skills and capability development is absolutely required. Plenty more, but I can't cover. So thank you again. To the audience, thank you for joining in. Thank you for your questions. We'll keep doing similar sessions. I hope you join us there as well. And a recording of this session will soon be available on our YouTube channel. So thanks to all of you and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.